Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kym Davick, and I'm joined by the founder of our company, Nick Glass, and we're going to be here today to welcome you to BookConnections, purchased and provided for you by the South Carolina State Library. Our goals today are to show you a bit about BookConnections, to make sure that you know that help and support is always available to you, and to entice you to reach out to us, because that's the goal. We're going to be reaching out to you, but we also want you to reach out to us because we're here to provide support for you. It's all included in your license from the state. So today, our goal then too is to engage our readers. We want you to know about how BookConnections and the resources used can be used both with your patrons and with your staff behind the scenes. We're going to talk about how to implement the resources in your youth and libraries and children's service programs, as well as show you new tools that will complement your work to enhance diversity in your library collections. You'll learn a little bit about our collection analysis and diverse books toolkits, and see these ready-to-use resources for book clubs and readers advisory. All of this in 40 minutes, which then will also allow time for questions. And so know that there's a lot here, and that is why we continue to provide that support for you, and we'll reach out and want you to reach out to us. But Nick, could you start with just giving a little welcome and overview backstory for everyone here?
Yeah, and good morning, everybody, and thank you. My name is Nick Glass, and I'm really honored to be here and work with you all today. And from here on out, it's just so exciting. I wanted to thank Linda for so proactively wanting to spread the word to everybody in the state about BookConnections availability to everybody. And I wanted to also just take a moment to thank all the people that helped put teaching books together for the state system, from Patricia, Krish, Lisa, and others. And so the little backstory about this service, and just an ease for you to understand, is that what you have here is a tool and a service that's here to enrich the children's and teen services work for your patrons and for your staff. And so it's one product that has all those components for you because we're trying to reach every reader. And we didn't have in our definition every reader age X to Y. We're only reading, X book. What we're trying to do is say you're reading a trade book, and we want to deepen that relationship to you. And just so you have a sense of what I'm getting at, what that means and why this exists, is my background is in educational policy and history of multicultural education. And in the 1990s, I began to host authors at a bookstore I was working at. And I saw the power of that. I was like, why is it that only those people that are able to come at that moment and who actually care about that book at that moment get to the value of this experience? So teaching books is an extension of that, saying, what book are you reading? How can we enrich it? How can we build a connection between the reader and the text, or the library staff and the parent who's going to be working with the student and child? Or how can we help as schools support the assignments and have the library be a place, and this resource be a place for homework support? There's so many sides to this. So if you remember one thing, it's that, oh, this is children's young adult books. Let's see what BookConnections can do. And then you'll begin to dive in. You're not going to get all this in 40 minutes. This is 22 years of work and development and working with people. But we are here for you. We are really, really excited to share equally with every single reader in the state of South Carolina that their relationship to children's books can become richer and deeper with these digital resources if any of you wish. So please know that. And Kym, have fun. And we're here. I'll be here throughout if anyone has any questions as well.
And
Thank
Nick,
you.
also just pop right in. Thank you so much.
Of
So
course.
we've talked about that too, but I think this service is so beautiful because BookConnections is for your patrons. So when you have this set up on your library portal, we'll talk a little bit about setup. They can go in and use these resources. It's also for your library staff. So in a different sense, it's a product that also supports that work for you. Tools to augment your work that you're already doing, from program to collection management, homework help for your families, all those ways that you support your patrons. And so we're just going to highlight just a few of those. And then another side note that we know, but if we don't say it, sometimes that doesn't get shared in a way. But teaching books are other product database. It's all the same, but that is the school side. So BookConnections and teaching books are hand in hand together. So when you're collaborating with your schools and the teachers who come to you for support for all that collaboration you do, you have this tool too to blend that all in. So all of that work that you're doing. So I'm just going to use my search bar because I'm going to start with a resource. And so I'm going to search for a title that is on your Junior Book Award. Stars are scattered. Because what I want to show you then is just what we've done, the beauty of our work. So here we have a book page. We've interviewed the author to be able to bring you direct backstory, inspiration, and you have all sorts of ways to be able to use that along with 54 resources to go along with this book to use in many different ways. But let's start with that Meet the Author reporting. I'm going to share just a little bit and then show you some of the tools here.
Hello, my name is Victoria Jamison. I'm the co-creator of When Stars Are Scattered. My co-author is Omar Mohammed, and colors for the book were done by Iman Getty. I wanted to write this book because I was working with refugees in my hometown of Portland, Oregon, and I was learning more about how refugees come to the United States, and I was getting to meet some wonderful people and hearing their stories. And I was starting to wonder if there was a way I could use my background as a graphic novelist to bring some of these stories to a young audience. But it was just a thought of mine, and I wasn't sure how to proceed. I didn't know the next steps until my family moved to Pennsylvania, and I met Omar Mohammed, the co-author, when I was visiting his place of work, which is Church World Service in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he works to resettle refugees and immigrants to the United States and help them find jobs and places to live. And I learned he was.
I'm going to pause. So I get so it's hard for me to pause sometimes when I'm listening to these because they're so beautiful. So we see in 3 minutes, just over 3 minutes, we're going to hear that backstory. At the top of every page of these pages, you can select a language. So if it is better for your readers to see it, this Meet the Author recording in Chinese, we can do that. And so that is available for your readers, for your staff to support. We also have our sharing arrow, and that is going to look the same, but I'm going to share from here so I can show you something here. We have all sorts of ways that you can share this resource. And so here I have a shelf talker image. I'll show you that in a second. So if we share this shelf talker, you can have this on your shelves to engage your readers, and it can be in any way that you need to support. If I go back to the original, now I also can have this shelf talker, immediate access, excitement for your readers on every shelf. So let's go back to the page I was on, and I'm going to change that back to the original. And I can't read Chinese myself, so I want to be able to show you all of these options. So here I have a link. You can send that in a letter home to families if you're like following up with something or you know someone wants this. You have a link that's going to get them right into it. You have bookmarks that you can put out at your displays. You can create a flyer for a display as well. That label sheet, if you have multiple copies of this for a book group, label sheet can go right in, and then that shelf talker is here. You can also share on digital platforms. So if you are bringing in, you want to promote with an email or something on Facebook, a social media post, you can do that. So ways for you in your work to excite at the moment, engage at the moment, and then to promote what you're doing. So those sharing tools provide that immediate access to resources. Nick, you look like you want to talk, but if you do, just let us know. But it is a hook. It's a preview. It's something that allows our readers to hear directly from that author illustrator to be able to make a decision about the book that they're reading. And you then are, as you always do, supporting that discovery to the next read.
I guess I'll just summarize what I just heard, and just so we all can learn in multiple ways. Whatever book a patron is using or you're interested in for any reason, you would search like Kym just did. You would find materials, and then we have resources about pretty much every trade book pre-K through 12 that's being used. And then you hit share, and then you can give that resource directly to whomever you want in whatever manner you want. You can decorate a display. You're putting out a display of books on refugees, and you wanted to have that shelf talker there. It's all ready for you. You don't have to design anything. It has immediate access. No one needs to know what BookConnections is. And the intention of all of this, again, going back to my role here, is to just help you realize this isn't a barrier breaker downer, an equity tool, so that you have those materials anywhere, anytime. And so, and all the things Kym's showing, that's just a mindset to have. And also know that I'm watching the chat. If throughout this you have questions, you want to chat a question, we're excited. We'll have time for questions at the end also, but I'm also here to fill that need as you see fit. Thanks, Kym.
Perfect. And Nick, as Nick just said, that I just wanted to get you excited about a resource, but it is about the books you're featuring, the books your patrons are reading. So if up at the top of every page, I want to browse, what are the options available? What are the options available? And I see that there are ways to see it for fun, which was also at the top, but what's all included in for fun? What's all included in for readers? And what's all included in professionals? And we can dive right in to think about our library programming pieces to see what kind of tools we have. And so if you're looking to support your book clubs, I can find a title and then move that along, or I can review all of the titles that have maybe a author illustrator name pronunciation, so we can deeply connect with a reader and with the author or illustrator by honoring them by saying their name, or which ones have a book reading or a meet the author recording like we just saw, or a trailer. So those are ways we can find those titles and find those resources. We can also just browse the entire collection of children's titles that we have resources for, which is almost 60,000, or that teen book collection, or the entire collection. We can discover all of that. Maybe you're doing how are we going to do our book talks? How can we enhance those? And that drop down is there too, with all of the different ways to do it. Your literary calendar will allow you to have different ideas for engaging your readers and bringing books to the forefront of any kind of conversation, or even widgets to put those right on your library homepages so your patrons see that all the time. Like Nick said, we don't want them to have to know, where was that tool again? We have tools for you to put them forefront. Your reading lists for South Carolina are here. I mentioned one, the Junior Book Award, but our content team updates these regularly. So if I were going to choose the Children's Book Award, here you're going to have 20 titles for your 2021-22 Children's Book Award. And here are all of the resources for these 20 titles, almost 400 of those. And again, like we just talked about, put those resources front and center. We have a tool. You can share all the resources in all those same formats, a bookmark, a flyer, or you can embed it right on your library homepage. So here's the code already designed for you to have this list featured right in your library homepage, or another list or an award list that you would like to do that. All of that code is there and ready. Okay, so that was one component, only one component for professionals. And I'm going to go back to that right now, because here's another way to see it all. And another thing that is very important right now is preparing for summer reading. So we have another section on summer reading here, which we can open up. And if you're using any of these lists, we've compiled resources for the titles on those lists already for you. So one of the exciting components is under accessible this year, we have those titles that are available in accessible formats from the National Library Service for the Blind. And those are listed here too. So there are 143 of those in the Oceans of possibility CSLP list this year, and there are just under 1,800 resources for you. So when you're thinking about, I want to perhaps make a display, or I want to start a story time, or I want to start an activity for my patrons, I can then use the resource type tools on the left-hand side and make my decisions. So here is the accessible list. Let's say you were going to do a story time. So you're going to use a filter tool. Let's filter for our youngest for story time. And now let's say maybe we want those story time activity kits. These are compiled for you, ready to go. So to support your work, if I open up Shark Lady, I can scroll down to that story kit. And you can use that share button to send it home to families after that. Maybe they want to do this activity again. You can print it here and have it ready for your patrons. But maybe you want to send it home because someone might want to do, I'm going to scroll back. Somebody might want to do one of these activities later. So you have all sorts of ways to get these resources right in the hands of your patrons in the moment or as follow-up.
So I'll chime in and just play the role of what did I just see in another way for you. If you're a CSLP library, and some people are CSLP, some are iRead. We don't know. I mean, I think as a state, I'm sure there's a lot of people using CSLP. So that's some but we have both, right? And then we also offer a program from IPOP list from the We Are Kid Lit Collective as well. When their books come out, we've taken the collections that someone else is choosing, and we're making it easy for you to have all the resources for that. Our goal over and over and over again is your books, we give you resources. So if we know you're already using CSLP, or you're already using a SCASL list, or you're already using the following 6 titles, we can give you those materials like that, all compiled just for you in a way that you can share and that you can embed, and you can do all those things Kym said. So anytime there's a collection of books, a family comes in and just wants the resources for their 7 books here, you can give them one list that has all of those 7 titles and all the resources with it to take home with those books. And then you can email it to them, whatever you want, give them a flyer, give them labels, whatever you want to do. But my point is just that it's all compiled, your books, one place. Hope that made sense. All right, thank you.
Yes, and if you have any questions about that. So the exciting part is that was just starting with library programming, and you saw that according of all sorts of ideas. You also have ways to promote your books. And so if you're thinking, like Nick was talking about, if you're promoting, maybe you're having an author come, or you're doing an author, a featured author, ways to promote that book and author using the resources here, all the different ways that you can use those shelf talkers. So they're attached to things that talk, hence the name. And so if you want them for your Have You Met, for your Meet the Authors, or trailers, or maybe book recordings or readings, any of those possibilities. So labels, and then just ways to continue getting the word out. So that is what is under the section that was under book promotion. You also can start taking a look at, and we're just going to, again, this is the skimming the surface of all of these sections. Every single one of these can be a webinar itself, where we talk with your staff, whoever you'd like, to start making some of these meaningful for you. We're just showing you all of the options today, or a few of the options. I guess we can't even show you all of them. But if you're wanting, we have a newly developed book list and collection analysis tool that allows you to build a list and then start examining those. You can examine them for all sorts of different ways, for insights into cultural areas, into recency, into all different areas. And I'm going to pull a list to show you that. So let's say that we're just going to choose one list, and I'll choose one of your South Carolina lists. You can also find those under your toggle menu. Anytime you're signed in, you'll see always reading lists. And so here, let's choose the picture book award. So we'll choose that one. We open it up, and maybe we're going to have a display, or we're going to promote this in some way in our library. On every page and in every list that you make yourself, you can analyze it. And let's see a little bit of what that looks like. So here we have the ability to take a look at a glance of the titles in that list. And it told us that we'll see there are 20 titles. It tells us at a glance that there are 8 genres represented. It tells us about 5 different cultural experience. It tells us the breakdown of fiction, nonfiction. We have some visuals to show us about recency of, and it's a newer award, so it's going to have great recency. But here's what we see from this list, all of the details of it. And then it also gives us a sense of what isn't included. And so in this particular case, if this is one of my featured displays, then I'm thinking in my next featured display, what might I want to have? So it's a great list. What do we see? What don't we see? How might we decide to use that information for a next, if you created a list on what you were using for your book groups, then you can use it to think about titles you might want to include. Once I click on these, I can start thinking about other titles in the collection that allow me to see possibilities to read. Nick, do you want to say anything here?
I think this exemplifies what a goal we're trying to do is to use technology to give you insights about whatever books you're using. So, and this is for staff. So remember, you might have thought you were coming here just for a patron-facing service. These tools we're showing you are to support you to support your patrons, right? So they're different visions of all this. We're trying to support your reading activities. So as we focus on giving you something you could never have without technology.
Right.
You couldn't have the author there right now when you're reading the book without technology. We're enabling that. We're giving you lesson plans, discussion questions, all those things immediately, because we put that together with technology, and the State Library, of course, is provided to give you that. This is another thing that technology does for you. It lets you look at any collection and give you another set of insights. We're not telling you there's a problem or that you're marvelous in this instance. What we're trying to tell you is, here's some thoughts. Did you know that this has no this Skazel list for young children has no graphic books? You say, that makes sense, because graphic novels really begin a little older than pre-K through 2. I'm good with that. But you get to do that analysis. We're giving you that thought. But you could say, oh, that's wonderful. There's 5 cultural experiences represented out of 20 titles. 20%. Okay, that's good. I'll start with that. Or you could say, you know what? I think I want to up that a little bit. Or I know we have a very large South Asian population that just moved into our community, and we want to make sure they feel more represented in our collections and our programs. So you get insights, and you can click on any of these titles. So on these bars, let's say you click on that bar of social studies, it will then show you what those 2 social studies books are in your list. So you're wondering, what were those? So it's all integrated into one tool, technology enriching your work with children and teen titles. This is just another example of that. Again,
Okay.
we're just touching the surface. We want you to come back, but we're trying to wet your whistle.
So let's wet it just a little bit more. So Nick said you have a population that maybe you did this great display to celebrate an award, a list that you have for your state. That's awesome. And then you said, oh, I noticed that it didn't have something. So let's say that it is this Asian American. Now here's the collection of that. We were looking at pre-K2 before, so now we can narrow, we can make a choice about another display or another activity that we're going to do. It's all data to guide you in your amazing work. So it's all, just letting you have some tools, like Nick said, to adjust and move your work. So let's go ahead back to professionals, and thanks, Nick, for that. It's always great to have it said in another way. grade instruction in to format. So now if I also, so that was on book list and collection analysis, another section I just want to talk about today before we ask you about any questions in this portion is a diverse books toolkit. So again, a way for you to jump in and be able to take a look at ways that you can use this tool to locate books that you want to highlight. So if I want to find diverse books by culture, I can do that and use my drop down. So I can use any of these cultural areas to decide that I want to examine more carefully, maybe by subject. I'm doing something in my library on a particular topic. You can pop this in by subject too, and then find those. You can also do an expanded search by culture and genre and the level of the readers that you're working with. And then you can also see these beautiful original interviews. As Nick said, we interview authors and illustrators, book creators daily. And so what can we see from these authors? So if I choose all, I open up that collection. And now I'm going to see the over 7,500 titles then that we have original materials for. You're not going to find them anywhere else than on BookConnections. And so if you want to hear Angie Thomas talking about The Hate You Give, or if you want to hear Jacqueline Woodson talk about Brown Girl Dreaming or Promote, or any of the other ways that you're using these tools in your libraries, they're here for you. All resources for 7,500 titles.
So that's a great example because Brown Girl Dreaming talks about her life in South Carolina. If you can click on that for me for a second. Wonderful book, very acclaimed, appropriately so. You know, you have her talking about why she wrote it. You have a movie in her home. You have a video book excerpt. You have the story of her name. You have, if you go up a little bit, there's an area there called Discover Like Books. And that's a reader's advisory for anybody. So when you're on one thing, you can kind of keep thinking. These tools are here for any reader. So when a child is reading this book and they really like it, why did they like it? Did they like it because they wanted more biographies about African-American women? Is it because they liked it because it was, if you scroll down, there'll be more topics. You know, I don't know which one, about prejudice or about what have you. You know, you can just kind of keep going through the social issues or poetry. Then you can go find other books that meet those interests. So you have a reader's advisory tool. You have a promotional tool. You have a homeschool support tool. So many things here, and just when you're looking at one title, you can keep diving in, and like it's just really, really hard to try to explain this in 40 minutes. Probably because I'm interrupting Kym is part of the reason it's going to be harder. But I'm just trying to show you like. This is a book a lot of people probably like, and there's so much there that you couldn't have without these technologies and the ability to share them.
Well, Nick, that's a great point, because what I love about this is your staff they have their reader's advisory bag of tools, right? But it supports that. So as they're starting to teach their readers about their own reading journey, it's helpful. We think about books differently. Why might I have liked that? Just as Nick said, but having a visual in front of the readers to think about, did I like how that author wrote? Did I like it because it was nonfiction or poetry, just as Nick said, but starting that conversation to empower our readers to take their next step on what they're going to read next. That's another great tool to have at your disposal, because you have a visual to guide your readers. Sometimes it's really helpful for them to say, this book won all these awards. Do you want to see other award-winning books from that award? Because those might speak to you too. And they might not have thought to think about, they might not have gone down that journey without this tool and you guiding them so that they see that for themselves when they're using BookConnections on their own.
And it behooves us, I'm sorry, Kym, just behooves us while you're right there. It behooves us to recognize all this information is here, also to help you when those challenges come into your library. What's some background about it? What are some what awards did it, what recognized it? What does the book look and sound like? Humanize the book to that person who's worried about it, and then you get to be more prepared and equipped. So again, another tool you have in your pocket for this day and age when there are a lot of people examining the work that's being done by all of us, and we're all here to support each other.
I think that is an incredible note, because why are you choosing this for your book group? Well, if anybody would ask, it is so well acclaimed. We can go back to that title too. And just another tool for you here that I haven't highlighted yet is as you're making, you probably have this on your shelves and everywhere, multiple copies, but if it were a title that you were considering, you can take a look at a preview, or you can look at information from the authors and publishers, all of those to help guide a decision. And so, before I purchase even, I can take a look to see a bit of what that book looks like and make some sense of what I want to, how I want to choose it. Or do I want to choose it? Oh my gosh, I hadn't read this. This is very powerful. I want to make sure I get it for my patrons, etc. So another great tool. And I'm going to pause for a moment before I talk about the next section to make sure that if there are questions. I don't see any yet, but sometimes you don't want to ask a question so that you don't miss anything. So I want to just pause. Okay. Well, don't hesitate even during this. So as we talked today, BookConnections is that tool for you to be able to direct your readers, your staff, everyone, and to support the reading that's happening for both patrons and the work that you're doing for your libraries. And so all of these tools are available in any way, and dive in, discover, take a look. Components too that we want to make sure that we say is we opened up access for everyone in the state. So because everyone has access at home, if you go to BookConnections, you'll be welcomed as a South Carolina resident. When you're in your public library, we're going to talk a bit about a setup form to make sure that you are welcomed correctly to your public library. And so some of you have started filling out that setup form. I'm going to share it. Nick can even pop it in the chat, but I'll show you a slide of it in a little bit, because we want your patrons, when they come to BookConnections at your library or on your portal, to be welcomed and see that this is one of their tools. Okay, so there are options there for you. We also want to showcase that support piece. So along with getting it set up in all of those technologies that you're using. So however you have, if you have your patrons sign in with their library card, we can get that set up so that they can sign into BookConnections and be welcomed appropriately with their library card. We want all of those pieces available for you. When I'm also signed in as a professional, as an adult, so adults then have that ability to create their own independent list. So your staff can create a list and keep that for themselves for their work. So all sorts of tools that we can showcase and highlight for you there as well. Okay. I'm gonna just.
So again, just summarizing, I put in the chat the link, but we've done what's called, we want to make sure to access the state library bought a resource for everybody here, every single person in the state. And that means that everybody should have access to it the moment they're reading a book. So one thing that we did was we used what's called geolocation authentication. And that means that if you just go to your phone, or you're at home, or someplace you're not just going through your proxies at your libraries, then you can, you'll have access to. And when we get near the end of this, I want to make sure to just cover the setup component to give you the link to make sure that you're going to be set up in your libraries properly, so that it's tied in. If someone is going to your databases, this is listed there. We have all that stuff laid out for you too, but we'll get to that in a minute. But what Kym was just saying is everybody has access, and it's bookconnections.org or teachingbooks.net. Those are the two interfaces. The public library interface is called BookConnections, and the school and academic service is called Teaching Books. Same content, different purposes, because there's different audiences.
Thank you. So I want to show you what that looks like. So we have those links right in this tool. So these are your pro tips to get everything ready for BookConnections. Fill out the setup form so that we have all the information from your library to make sure that everything is seamless for you and your patrons. And then reach out for training and support. This is the appetizer. And what we want to do then is when you go to the help to ask for support, someone on our team will then reach out and connect about how we can make this meaningful for you in your library, your patrons, your work. It's never about, we're just showing you some ideas, as Nick and I have said, but it is about what you're doing. What are your summer reading lists? What are your plans? What are you promoting? We want to know that so we can talk to you about that, show and work with you. Or if you want your staff trained, we're happy to do that too. So any of those, it's all included. Any of those options are available to you in the help piece.
Kym, could you please click on the setup form? I just want to show them that. This is going to be the essential component for the future. If there's one action to ensure that you're doing after this, is to see if you've set it up. Because while there is access through Discus and there is the geolocation, when your patrons come to your library, they're not just going to randomly type in BookConnections. So if you have it set up with all your other e-resources, filling out this form will give us the details to set it up for you. You'll tell us, oh, we use Easy Proxy, or oh, here's our library card access, or oh, here's our IP range for our library. Yes, you can get in without it, but this way, the statistics, you have to report your statistics as public libraries, I'm sure, to somebody at your state libraries, my guess. I imagine, I don't want to assume for anybody, but I'm going to guess. And so then this would help show people who are using our system coming in through our services went to this, and then you're going to get those stats. And so we want to make sure that this service is tied in and treated the same way you would if you had personally made that decision to purchase it. This is for you. It's just been provided equally to everybody in the state. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make the effort to try to make sure it's customized for you. It'll have your library brand, it'll have your logo, your library system's name, and so forth. So please, again, the link is in the chat, it's on Kym's slide. Fill that out, and then we'll get back to you to make sure that's all set up. If there's anything you want to gossip about on your state listserv, it's like, oh, go set this up. It's here for us now. And we're just rolling this out. This is our first South Carolina training, but it takes all of us to reach everybody. We can't do it. I can't do that from my home in California or Kym's home in Wisconsin, or even your one home in your one part of South Carolina. This is to break down barriers of access for every single person in the state. So please guide us on how we can help do that. We'll do our very best, we'll support it. But this is a partnership we're just beginning. And we want to tell you that's the key. And then, of course, as Kym said, we're here then to train, support, make sure you get everything possible out of this. But if you don't know it and you can't access it because you didn't know the link, then it's not going to quite work as well.
So that's why it's the first of two pro tips. Get us all set up and then reach out so that we can have conversation about any possible ways that we can support you. That is our goal. And thank you, Linda, for allowing us this opportunity to be able to start this conversation. I need to make sure that I leave a little bit of time for you to complete that survey that Linda needs. And so I just want to pause to make sure. I'll just show you the help as well too. So you'll see that help and support. And so you'll see a contact us, and you can reach out for training, or you can contact myself or Nick directly. Nick will, I hope, pass it right along to me so we can get right to you. Okay, so if going back to the BookConnections piece, know that we want to get it set up for you. It's about your work, your patrons and your goals. And so there are some pieces here for you, but we would love to have conversation with you about ways to navigate through it. And any questions, or you have certain goals, like I want to make sure that my digital collection is just great right now, but I want to increase physical circulation. How might we want to do that? Or I want to increase my digital circulation. How might we talk about books to do that? Like, we're happy to have all these kind of conversations to deepen what you're doing. And that's our goal. Okay. Pop any questions in, and then I want to make sure that I move. Again, access is available. Always let us know how we can help. If we take anything away other than set up and train, let us know. And then I do want to make sure that I get that link. Oops. It was live. So I'm going to go back. Oops. Looks like I lost it again. One moment.
I didn't memorize it. It wasn't on long
I didn't
enough for me to
either,
see it.
because it's Linda shared it with me.
I know, I'm joking.
It's
I'll copy it and put it in the chat too. once I have it.
because I can't.
No, I can't. I'll just type it in.
Okay,
I'll
thank
put that link into the chat for everybody. It's
you. One of us will get it there for you. And so, but again, we've got a couple minutes for you to be able to do that survey during your time. We want to honor that time, and we'll make sure that it goes. Thank you, Nick.
and feel free to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
We're here. So the question came up about complete book readings, because we know right now, like weather, COVID, life, are there any full set book readings? Because teaching books is a collection of resources about books. And prior to COVID, if you could scroll down just a teeny bit to the boxes maybe, and here you'll see that there's the fourth button down says enjoy 1900 complete book readings. So that used to be just a few hundred, but then when COVID began, we began to find and full sets of poems or titles being performed for you in video format that you can use for story time. This is a complete book and poem collection. Everything here has the rights for you to use. It's not like just going to YouTube and finding, somebody illegally reading a book out there. And so this is all available to you. It's 1900 different titles. And again, as Kim's showing you on the left side, you can sort and filter by different ways. So I hope that answered that question. And Kim, chime in if there's something else. But
No, I think that's a great question. And I think that leads us to, if I talk about the book promotion tool too, one of the ways that we were talking about finding those resources too, here's finding different ones, but how are we going to browse our entire collection? And so we have those 1900 completes, but there are resources for over 78,000 titles. So you're going to find those children and young adult books that are going to meet your needs. And if we don't have something that your patrons are using, we'd like to know what that is. And if it meets a collection development policy and we have and can locate quality resources to support it, then that's a great possible addition. Did you get another question, Nick? I didn't see any others.
I did not. It was just someone wrote excellent, thanks.
Right.
So we got our answer to that question.
If you could take just one quick moment as you're doing your survey to pop in the chat one big takeaway for you today, we'd love to see that. So go ahead, type in something that you can take away into your work, or things that you're considering, thinking at this point. That's really helpful for us too. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording for us.